All right. Welcome to another episode of The Close Up, part of the Orlando Magic HQ network. I'm your host, Stephen Cameron, and today we got a really good episode. Good, kind of good. It's good. It's a good episode. It's a hard conversation. We have Scotchie on the call with us today, one of the Orlando Magic HQ writers, and we kind of just have like a good venting session about what's been going on with the team without Paulo and some of the other injuries that the Magic have been facing. It's been rough, Magic fans. We know this. These last couple of games versus the Thunder, which just happened tonight. We talk about it versus the Dallas Mavericks and versus the Cavs. They've just not been fun without Paulo and also without Wendell Carter and also without Goga. It's been a carousel of injuries that this team is trying to figure out. Coach Mosley is trying to figure it out, and it has just been rough. They're not shooting well. The guys that are supposed to hit shots are not hitting shots. It's just from a team. There's not, outside of like seeing guys being played in bigger roles, like Tristan da Silva being thrown in as a starter. That's been really fun and exciting to watch him just adapt and grow. You can see like the potential that he has and the impact that he's going to make as he continues to get more comfortable. We're seeing Anthony Black take on a bigger role. There is some growing pains with some of this. Obviously, like the team is struggling and they're in the middle of this like gauntlet of a road trip, right? We talk about it on the episode, but right now the Magic just played 3 of the top 5 teams in the entire league right now. And it's just been challenging. It's been really, really challenging, but the team will figure it out. But just to say, how much they've been like, yeah, the the Cleveland Cavaliers are 8-0. They haven't lost a game yet. And they're the best team in the league right now. You have the Dallas Mavericks. They are sitting 4th in the West at 4-2. They got superstars in Luka and Kyrie Irving, who's playing really well. Klay Thompson's been fitting in really nicely with them. Like, that was a really, really tough matchup. And then again, you have the Oklahoma City Thunder, another undefeated team. They're 6-0, sitting at the top of the Western Conference. So this road trip is really hard. It was on a back-to-back tonight. They played Dallas just last night. I recorded this Monday, November 4th, pretty late. We started it about 4 minutes left of the Oklahoma City Thunder game when things obviously were pretty wrapped up at that point. And, I just got to say, you'll hear it in this conversation that we have, but the Magic are probably going to figure some things out. They're going to find a better balance. It's just been really challenging for them to figure it out on this road trip with some of the health injuries they've been dealing with. So, Magic fans, we're going to get through this. We're going to find some lights at the end of the tunnel. I look forward to this Magic team getting home after they play the Indiana Pacers here on Wednesday and figuring out some things on a good 6-game homestand. They're going to be at home. They don't leave until like middle of November for a West Coast road trip. So they'll be at home for a good little bit where they can have some really good film sessions, some good shoot arounds and walkthroughs, and maybe even fit in a practice or two in there to like figure some things out. But it's been rough. I feel it. You feel it. We all feel it. It's not fun, but hopefully the light will come sooner than later, and hopefully Paolo will just recover. And when they do their evaluation and, another 4 or 5 weeks, that it comes good news and he can get back on the court sooner than later. Before we get to this conversation with Luke, I just want to remind you all of some of the people that help make this podcast possible. Our sponsor with Bet Online, we work with them through our network that works with us, Believe Network. Basketball fans, it's that time of year again. The NBA is back from opening tip-off to buzzer beaters. Bet Online has you covered with the best bets, the best betting odds, biggest promotions, and live in-game betting on all your favorite teams. I personally have gotten back into betting a little bit. I put some money into my account the other day, and I've been having a lot of fun, having some success, having some not so good success. But either way, like, BetOnline is a great platform for you to place your bets if you want to place some fun wagers on some basketball games. This season, every game matters. BetOnline has every stat, matchup breakdown, and live odds to bet on during the game. It's not just the NBA. BetOnline has odds on everything from football, MLB playoffs, and NHL. It's all there. Head over to the website today. Get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. Bet online, the game starts here. My personal PSA is always gamble responsible, should always be fun money. Another super fun and exciting thing is I love talking about our partner, Brandon Kravitz, over at 96.9 The Game. Catch Brandon Kravitz on In the Zone 5 days a week, talking about all the hottest sports topics in Orlando and beyond, live on 96.9 The Game and iHeartRadio. Also, if you're looking for more Magic coverage, Brandon will be hosting an extension of his show on game days. It's In the Zone Game Day Magic from 6 to 6:30 p.m. every weekday that the Magic play a game. It's such a good show because Brandon focuses so much on the Magic. Like, you'll really get a good feel of what is going to, like, what we're all thinking going into the game. And he is with this team all the time, really, really focusing on giving like really accurate breakdowns of what we can expect. So make sure you tap into all those pregame shows with Brandon Kravitz on 96.9 The Game every game day, Monday through Friday from 6 to 6:30. And if that's not enough, catch bonus content and exclusive interviews about the Magic, sports betting, fantasy, and more on the Zoneheads podcast. Download and subscribe wherever you listen to us now. All right, let's get into this conversation with Luke Scotchie. All right, Magic fans, like I said, we got Luke Scotchie, Orlando Magic HQ, reporter, journalist, storyteller, kind of does a little bit of everything for us. Luke, how's it going this evening, man? How are you?
It's going great. It's a beautiful Monday. Stephen, happy belated daylight savings time. Every single time I tell myself I'm going to get used to it being pitch black dark at 4:30 in Boston. The sun sets very, very, very early. So you wake up, blink, and then the next moment, it's the sundown. And I never do get used to it.
You never do. You never do. I woke up so early this morning and I was like, I guess I could go do something, or I could just like not and just have a cup of coffee early, and that's fine. And that's what I chose to do. But now I'm like exhausted. Listeners, we are recording this Monday, November 4th at 8:30 p.m. Pacific time. So it's like 10:30, 11:30 East Coast time. The Magic are there's 3 minutes left versus the Oklahoma City Thunder game, and they are down by 18 points, 82-99. It's not looking good. That's not 18 points. That's 17 points, 19 points. It's late, guys. I'm tired. I'm just letting you know I can't do math. But the Magic are down, and it's not looking so good. We're going to talk about a lot of things, right? The Orlando Magic have been down their superstar Paulo Banchero, who started off the season phenomenally, 230-plus point games, 150-point game, really doing well with his assist to turnover ratios, was having a phenomenal start to the season. He's out 4 to 6 weeks until he's reevaluated for a torn oblique, and life has been really hard for this Magic roster, this Magic fan base. So I have Luke with us tonight, and Luke, you and I, we're just going to talk. We're going to talk about what we are feeling, what we are seeing, and what we are hearing about this Magic team, and kind of, we're going to go through it. So I'm just going to start this off with a really easy, simple question, Luke. The Magic have now missed Paulo for 3 straight games. He missed the Cleveland game 2 nights ago on this road trip. He got hurt on the Chicago Bulls game, the first game of the road trip. Missed Cleveland, which was a gross, ugly game. Missed Dallas, which, the last night, again, another really bad game. Oklahoma City Thunder, still not a great game. Like, the Magic look really bad. There's a lot of just experimenting going on with coaching, and it doesn't help that Goga is playing his first game tonight after being out with a foot injury versus Oklahoma City Thunder. He's got his first real minutes tonight. He started. And Wendell Carter Jr. was out for a little while. He missed Cleveland, and I think even the Chicago game. And then he played 9 minutes versus Dallas, and then his plantar fasciitis flared up really bad. We know he dealt with that last year. Not ideal. He dealt with the knee tendonitis last year too, which was what kept him out for a couple of games too. So it's just like some old injuries are coming back up for him, which is just super unfortunate. This team has just been depleted. I mean, we saw a stretch during the Cleveland game where they were literally running Franz at center for a moment, and it was just like not great. How have you been feeling? What are you taking away? What are just some general thoughts with Paulo being out and just this run that the Magic are on right now on this 5-game road trip?
Paulo being out Newsflash is not great for this team, not just for the fact that he is the team's leader, he is the team star, but as we've seen throughout the entire 4 game period in which he played, or 5 game period which he played, he really, really runs this offense. And a lot of the way that the Magic play on that side of the ball is dictated through Paolo. And when you cut off the head of the snake, the body just goes just goes wild. It doesn't know what to do with itself. And that was the big question going into it, or these next few games. How will the Magic adjust their offense without Paulo Banchero leading the way? Will Franz be the number one option, and will he have the same, not heliocentric, but the same responsibility that Paolo does? Will it be a mix of Franz, Suggs, and the emergent Anthony Black? They're trying to do a number of different things, and as we've pointed out with the final scores, not a lot of it has been working. Again, it's still very, very young into this injury scene for Paolo, and it's also very, very important to note that we've been playing a bunch of really, really good teams.
Yeah.
And again, Cleveland is 8-0. The Thunder are probably going to end up with one of the best records in the NBA. It's one thing to lose to lose by 20 points to, say, Indiana, which we'll find out soon enough if that will be the case, or Chicago. But it's another thing entirely to lose to a team like Cleveland or Oklahoma City, teams that are very, very dominant. And you look at what Jamahl Mosley said earlier today, that having these opportunities, especially with a banged up roster, is huge for the Magic at this early stage. A team that's identity on offense has essentially been just give Paolo the ball and let him cook. It's important to see what works, what doesn't work as we navigate what is a very difficult and unexpected time in the season right now.
Yeah, it's, this stretch was going to be hard regardless, right? You are literally going up. The team is literally going up against 3 of the top 5 teams in the league right now. Oklahoma City hasn't lost a game yet. They're 6-0. They're about to be 7-0 after tonight. Dallas Mavericks are sitting 4th in the Western Conference at 4-2 right now. Then you have, the Cavs are undefeated 8-0. They haven't lost a single game. They have the best record in the NBA at the moment. And it was going to be hard regardless. So then when you take away not only Paolo, the guy that everything is revolving around, right? Like Jalen Suggs is learning and taking on more on-ball responsibilities as a point guard, but still a lot of it is just like run a quick, screen, get Paolo the ball, and Paulo's either going to drive to the basket and try and create contact, throw an ISO, or, draw in some defenders and then kick it out to an open shooter and have them shoot the ball. And like they just haven't been able to figure out quite yet what to do with that. It's like there's just not enough creation on the floor right now that can kind of like set things up right. And it's just, we've seen a lot of just different lineups too that coach is throwing out there, right? The Cleveland game, Mo Wagner started at center and Franz Wagner was the power forward. Next game, they had Wendell Carter back, and they started Wendell Carter next to Tristan da Silva, so then Franz could slot back in, on that small forward, power forward, like wing position. There's a little bit more flexibility there with having a little bit more size than Tristan da Silva. Again, tonight versus Oklahoma City Thunder, you had Goga in the starting lineup. So it's like we've had 3 different starting lineups in 3 different nights, and that is just like things are not going well. It's like a lot of experimenting happening. I'm not going to say not going well. They're going well as in they're getting a lot of information. The results have not been great as far as playing competitive basketball. Other things we're saying, like Cole Anthony plays in the Dallas game. He doesn't play any meaningful minutes in the Oklahoma City game. So coach is doing a lot of experimenting. He's trying to see what's going to stick. He is seeing what is not sticking right now. And my hope is just that after this gauntlet of a road trip that they're on, that when they get home and they can run a practice or 2, they can kind of like start to figure out some new things that will just like help unlock some stuff for this team. To make it all worse, Luke, the team started off hot from 3. Like the first 3 games, they were I think top 3 or 4 in 3-point shots attempted, and then they were like top 10 in 3-pointers made, at making them at like 37%. Now they're not making anything. Like they can't hit a 3-pointer to save their life. Let's just look at this game. I'm going to pull up the stats right now from the box score. And it's like the Magic shot from three. Pulling it up. Guess the percentage. Guess the percentage, unless you just saw it. Did you see it?
I just saw it. Do you want to tell the listeners what this is?
It's 14%. They shot
14.7%. That is
off 34 attempts.
34.
It was bad. Like the Magic couldn't hit anything tonight. KCP went 1 from 4. Tristan da Silva went 1 from 4. Franz went 1 from 4. Suggs went 1 from 4, and Corey Joseph in garbage time went 1 from 2. So it's like they made 4 3-pointers in the non-garbage time minutes. That you're just not going to win basketball if you're taking 34 of them, which is a fine number to take in this current season with how the Magic want to play, and you only make 4 of them. That's not a winning formula. Yeah, it's just so frustrating. And then, to go back, like you're dealing with more injuries to the team with Wendell Carter Jr. and Goga. It's just like, how are they supposed to win? How? I don't get it.
And kind of going back to the 3-point thing early, I think that's the biggest, not just the biggest drop off, but the biggest thing that Paolo's absence really, really amplifies, because obviously this is a team that is built around Paolo, and Paolo is a kind of player that needs the ball in his hands a lot and needs everyone else to start spacing. And so he's got a floor with KCP, with Jalen Suggs, with Mo Wagner, guys who can space the floor at a average to above average rate. And now those guys are being asked to have the ball in their hands a lot more, and the 3-point percentages are going to suffer just because because there's no attention on Paolo and Franz,
right,
as much as there is, because now all those defenders are able to spread the floor a little bit more. They're allowed to defend other players that aren't Paolo. They're also incentivizing guys like Suggs, and especially Franz, to start taking shots that they otherwise would not take when they're second and third to Paolo. 5 and 34 is a hilarious marker.
It's bad. It's hilariously bad.
14.7%. That is lower than what my last math class was, but I feel like Paolo being out hurts this team's offense. Not just the fact that they have so many creators, or they don't have any more creators other than Paolo, but because there's no one else to space the floor, because now Suggs taking a lot more responsibility. Now Anthony Black's taking a lot more responsibility. Franz's responsibility is through the roof right now.
Yeah, it's everyone's being asked to do more, right? And which is not a bad thing, but it's just been a really tough adjustment. And to say this, going into the Bulls game, they were, I think, about 12th in league offense. They had slipped a little bit out of the top 10, sitting around 12th. And now after the Oklahoma City game, the numbers have been adjusted, and they've dropped down to 25th in offensive rating. Now, thankfully, the Magic are still top 10. They're at 108.5 defensive rating, which is 9th best in the NBA. But even then, when you see the Magic defense right now, does it look good? Because to me, it's I see them locked in for a quarter. I see them locked in segments, but it's we're not seeing consistent defense from the first quarter was really not great this during this game. And it's just been really tough to watch. And so I'm just trying to figure out what's got to happen for them to lock in to play defense at a higher rate. Because again, tonight's game, we'll just talk about tonight's game for a moment. The first quarter, they allowed OKC to have 39 points. Awful defense. They then locked them down to 19 points in the second quarter, 26 in the third, and then back to 18 in the fourth quarter. The Magic actually won the fourth quarter, going 28-18 of points scored versus Oklahoma City Thunder. But they're just had the Magic just played good defense from the first, they lost the game in the first quarter. That's ultimately what happened. The game was lost in the first and the third quarter because the Magic's defense was just not as tight as it should have been compared to what we saw in the second and the fourth quarter. So I don't know, man. Something's got to change for this Magic team to kind of get their identity back as a consistent defensive force. Because if not, teams are just going to continue to steamroll them. I had this thought where it's like, the only way the Magic are going to be able to sustain this Paulo injury and stay in decent standings is if their defense holds true. And again, the Magic are playing some of the best teams in the league right now. So it's going to be hard defensively no matter what. But you got to hold it together through 4 quarters. You absolutely do.
You really, really do. That first quarter has been a massive, massive problem for the Magic over the past several games. Every single loss the Magic have faced this season, what's the common trend?
The bad starts.
The first quarter, the bad starts. They tend to go down these 20 points, these 20-point deficits very, very early on, and they just can't recoup. Like, recall the Memphis game. That was a beautiful, beautiful third quarter. A pristine third quarter. One of the best third quarters I've ever seen any team play in my life. But it didn't matter because you had a first quarter where you utterly collapsed. You stumbled out the gate after warm-ups. You weren't on your right foot early on, and you let Zach Edey hit his first career NBA three, if I'm not mistaken. You can't let any of those things happen if you are a team that prides yourself on your defense the way that it does. You also can't be a team that expects to go anywhere, especially without Paolo. Especially, I mean, he's not your best defender, but he's the guy that at least is the most physically capable of taking on assignments where there's bigger guys with the ball in their hands, just because of the way that he's built, 6'10", 250. And without that, you're really like think about it. It's really, especially with the injuries to the two centers, you got elite perimeter defense with Jalen Suggs, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and Anthony Black in some order, and then down low who have Goga, who is a good shot blocker, but really that's it. He can't really go too far away from the rim. And then you got Mo Wagner, love the guy, but there's just limitations with him there defensively. It's without all those guys, not just Paolo, without Wendell, without Mo, and Wendell wasn't even that good of a defender, but at least he was a body down there. At least good relatively to Suggs, KCP, what have you. It's a very one-dimensional defense right now without it. And offenses, especially good offenses like the Thunder, the Mavs, the Cavs, are just eating that up. And again, we saw that with the Grizzlies game. So it's a problem that's been festering long before Paolo's injury as well. It's a question of how do you make your defense a lot less predictable or exploitable when it's very, very obvious how to exploit it.
Yeah. And, when you add that to like a team still trying to figure things out, they had 18 turnovers tonight. It's just, it's going to be challenging. So backing this off a little bit, Paulo's out 4 to 6 weeks minimum, right? For a reevaluation. Really, it's not even saying he's going to be back in 4 to 6 weeks. They're going to reevaluate him in 4 to 6 weeks, and then he's probably going to have a ramp up. So we're looking at like mid-December at the earliest, more likely maybe late December. Like if we're lucky, maybe around Christmas time would be nice to have him back, but it could be closer to like end of December, early January. Where's your panic meter with this Magic team?
My
like scale of 1 to 10.
If the baseline is to make the playoffs, my panic meter is at a 4. Just because in an Eastern Conference where realistically France could be the first option on some of these Eastern Conference teams, and that's not necessarily an insult to any of them. But I think long term, especially if Paolo is not back by a reasonable amount of time, this is like a 9 or a 10 for me. I mean, a 10 would be like the season's over. I don't think the season's over, and it's difficult to fully panic and buy into that panic when you're playing through the best teams in basketball back to back to back as your first test.
Yeah.
But it's also not very, very pleasant to see when you have expectations of at least making it past the first round. If you can't tango with Cleveland, Oklahoma City, or Dallas in the regular season, with or without your best player, what makes you think that you're going to be able to do that in the playoffs when they're even more hungry to win that championship that you haven't been and you're probably going to face one of those teams, especially if dear God we make the play in, and it's not something that I'm looking forward to thinking about in April. When we say, man, if we only had Paolo for those first few games or for that first stretch of the season, because right now they're treading water and they're treading water poorly. But again, I'm willing to give it a 4 for right now, assuming Paolo's health is okay and assuming they can at least put up somewhat convincing games against Chicago, Indiana, who is good, but not Cleveland, Oklahoma City good.
Yeah.
If they can do that, especially as they have more time to ramp up, think we're going to probably look at this and go, we may not be a 4 seed. I'll take 5 and 6. And if we just get to 6, like we say 4 is the magic number, I think 6 is the magic number, especially now with Paolo, because you just don't want to even leave that.
You don't want to be in the play-in.
Up to, yeah.
Yeah, you want to avoid the play-in, for sure. For me, like 4 is a good number, but I have different reasons. But that's like the same number I was thinking on a scale of 1 to 10, right? It sucks for this season. It doesn't really matter long term. We know the Magic were not a team that was going to go win a championship this year. There's just
no.
It's just young teams don't win this early. Like, again, long term, not really concerned. This isn't like an injury that should have reoccurring things in future seasons. Like it's when he heals from this, he should be good, right? It's not like a knee issue or an ankle issue or something that we could see like flare up. Like this doesn't feel like an injury that could cause him troubles in the long term unless he comes back from it too early. Now, the other thing is like it's still early. These last couple of losses have been really bad, and I know a lot of us are feeling deflated because of it, but like there's, okay, so the Magic dropped 3 and 4. They're sitting 7th in the East tonight. Well, had they won tonight and they were 4 and 3, they'd be sitting in like 4th place. So it's like things are moving very quickly. They might lose, if they win versus the Pacers, who the Pacers are 2 and 4 right now, that'll keep them in the middle of the pack with the playoff teams. And that's kind of what we want. We want them to tread water. They need to figure out a way to beat the teams they're supposed to beat, stay competitive against the teams that they're not supposed to beat, and, get a couple of wins here and there. The other reason I'm not like super worried is because I do believe this team's defense will get dialed in. And I do believe that defense will keep them, that it'll get good enough to where it'll keep them in games to where it'll not feel so bad and they might actually have a chance at beating some of these better teams in front of them. Guys should fall into their roles a little bit more offensively too. Like they'll figure something out. There's a lot of people that also are like, let's go get a trade. Let's have the team do a trade right now. Pump the brakes, people. That's not going to happen. The league doesn't really do trades until December 15th when a lot of players that have been re-signed, signed new contracts, become available for trade right now. Anyone that's really signed a new contract, and a lot of guys that even signed extensions, they're not trade eligible until December 15th. So that's kind of when trade season opens up. And then when we're at December 15th, we could be a week or two away from Paulo being back on the court. They're not going to go make a short-sighted trade, like short-term solution right now, right? They're not going to go trade away. What value would a team get from the Magic by giving them the Denver pick, the Cole Anthony, who's had a horrible start, and like Corey Joseph and some other like no one's trading for that. That's not giving you anything, right? So like you'd have to trade something of value, like even to go get like a Dennis Schroeder off like the Nets, like that package is not getting you shit. Like let's pump the brakes until players can find their rhythm and start looking good again. And also like the trade like market actually opens up in December 15th. Like we'll see what happens. Now, if it looks like Paul is going to be out longer into like January, I could see them making a trade to go find like a point guard, bench scorer type player, Colin Sexton, like I said, Dennis Schroeder. Those are the type of players that come to mind. But that's going to be because it ultimately helps Paulo in the Magic, not just Magic without Paulo. So that's kind of like where my panic meter's at. That's kind of where I'm just thinking holistically from this team, like tread water. I agree with you. Stay like in that 6th to even if they were in the 7th range in the play-in come January, like that's okay. Paulo will come back. They'll kind of get their shit back together, and they will cruise and start to slowly jump back up the ladder and win. Because like Luke, when I look at the Eastern Conference right now, 2 teams that everyone thought were going to be really high. The Bucks 1-6, the 76ers 1-4, right? They've won 1 game. The Magic have 2 more games on top of both of them. The Pacers, another team that people expect to be in the playoffs, 2-4. There's a lot of teams right now that have not started off great. So there's cushion for the Magic to figure this out, because I don't think the 76ers and the Bucks are going to figure this out anytime. They're going to win some more games, but I don't think they're all of a sudden going to be magically clicking on all 4 cylinders, just like feeling it, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, having Milwaukee and Philadelphia be as dysfunctional as they are right now is a huge boon to the Magic, because both of those teams were obviously playoff teams. Taking them at least out of the fray for right now. Again, Milwaukee 1-6 right now, Philly 1-4 right now. At least the Magic have ground to stand on and will continue to lay or raise that ground when Paolo gets back. Having like that's a huge blessing for the Magic to be able to at least still be competent. And you look who's at the top right now, how successful or how sustainable is the Nets going to be? How sustainable are the Bulls going to be? Those are 2 teams that are immediately ahead of the Magic right now that no one thought were going to be good, but we beat Brooklyn handily, and it took a single shot to get us to lose to Chicago. But with this Magic team, again, like we said, it's about trading water or treading water. But on that note, actually, I'm also with you. I think the trade talk is bogus right now, especially for right now, because like you said, there's not a lot of value that we can give. And we need to remember that everything that we've done was not at all for this season. It was for the future. This season was meant to be that extra step.
Yeah.
See how we can handle expectations. Obviously, the expectations are now a little bit lower with Paolo's injury throwing a wrench into plans. But the success, the mountain of success peaks.
I actually don't think expectations are any lower for this team. I think us that are covering the team might see them differently, but I bet if you ask every single player on that roster and you ask Coach Mosley on that roster right now, I don't think any of them would say their expectations have changed. I bet they are all holding themselves to the highest standard right now, saying, yeah, we still want to have home court advantage. We want to figure out a way to be a better competitive team and still have, still fight for home court advantage. Like, I actually think, I just want to push back a little bit. I think Magic fans have adjusted their expectations, and I think media has adjusted their expectations. Like, I do agree there, but I don't think the team has adjusted their expectations.
No. I meant in the short term when it came to, because like we've been saying with Mose, right now it went from let's get these guys experience to, oh crap, let's pivot a little bit. Let's see what works right now. That has been the general theme with what Mosley's trying to do while Paolo's gone. Like, I'm not like they're definitely not expecting or they're not throwing in the towel at all. They're still expecting to be a good team. They're expecting to be a good playoffs, but I don't think anybody's expecting that no Paolo, no problem.
Speaking of Coach Mosley,
right now.
I jump in for a second? Speaking of Coach Mosley, you've like Magic fans, if you're not following Luke on Twitter yet, like go follow him. He's been doing an awesome job taking clips from media sessions. He's been really digging into the media sessions after games with Coach Mosley, finding just like dissecting what he's saying and finding really interesting things. What are some themes that you are hearing stay true with, or just, come out from Mosley since he's been coming, in the most recent games? Like you've been active doing this. Like, what are you hearing from Coach Mosley, and what is he saying to us?
He's saying a lot of things. One thing that's really stuck out to me is just how candid he's been. Like, there's a lot of optimism with him, and I really don't think it's forced. Like, obviously, you can't just go out and say, nah, Paolo's gone, season's over, bye-bye, pack it in. But no one in there wants Paolo to be out. But having your leader not only keep saying, this is just this is a moment in time, this is a blessing in disguise, as we heard with Wendell's injury, not only having him say that, but having it be believable and authentic is huge for the morale of this team as it goes forward. And that's always been Jamahl Mosley's strength as a head coach. He has been able to get the buy-in from his players in a way that I don't think I've ever seen from a Magic coach. I really think that the way that Jamahl Mosley has handled the situation has been superb. And again, it's his whole thing is that sure, we're not going to be the same team that we were. That's fine. I'm optimistic that our depth is going to at least help us through. What does that look like? To heck if we know. That's what we're going to find out right now. Not only to see what works and what doesn't during this time, but more importantly, when Paolo comes back, what works and what doesn't in those moments where Paolo's on the bench when Paolo can't play, so we can still have those units rising. We haven't found that yet, but again, it's still game 3. We're still mixing and matching. We're noticing a couple of trends that Jamahl Mosley likes right now. Tristan da Silva still being a starter, I think, is something that he is very intentional over, and I don't think that is I guess there's nobody else. I really do think that he places a lot of trust in da Silva right now. I think the priority of keeping Mo Wagner and Jonathan Isaac on the second unit as spark plugs and real guys that can shift what was last year one of the best second units in basketball is really, really, really important to him, and keeping them away from the starting lineup as much as possible, even if it means putting in a guy like da Silva in extended minutes, even if it means putting in a guy like Goga, who in game 1 they played in garbage time against the Heat. That's really important to keeping at least some level of consistency in a point of time where every single thing is gone to the crap, at least in terms of your offense.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we saw that last year too, when early in the season when Wendell Carter and Markelle Fultz went out, he went to the third stringers to keep that second unit intact. He brought in Goga and Anthony Black. They both played about 20 games as starters until Fultz came back and Wendell Carter came back. So we know they're capable of playing those bigger minutes. It's in those bigger roles too. And coaches, he doesn't want to disrupt too many things at the same time. And I mean, unfortunately, he still is disrupting the second unit because 1 minute Cole Anthony is in game playing meaningful minutes. The next game he's not. So it's a little bit back and forth, but I'm hoping that they can start to figure things out in the next couple of games and find some lineups that they can stay consistent with over multiple games and not constantly changing. Again, health would be a really important thing for this team to be able to do that. But there's other things that we can see that needs to happen for them. Is Tristan da Silva going to be a starter for the next month or so, right? That's a question that we need to know sooner than later. And when we look at the schedule ahead, they just wrapped up. They have one more game on this road trip. They just wrapped up versus the Thunder. They have the Pacers on Wednesday. Then they have back home. They have a nice little homestand. Okay. They have the Pelicans, the Wizards, the Hornets, the Pacers, the 76ers, all before they go back on the road. So they have a nice 6-game homestand before they go back for a big West Coast road trip. So ultimately, my expectations and my hope is those 6 games, they figure out a lot of shit, right? They dial in a lot of things. They get down with some really good film practices, some really more detailed shoot arounds. They're not going to have, I'm looking at the schedule. It doesn't look like they're actually going to have a practice day in there. Typically practice days come when they're at home and there's 3 days off, so they can do a practice day in the middle. They don't typically practice the day right before a game. So and I don't really see that currently in their schedule. Maybe a practice will come up that I'm just not seeing, but you want to see them get some stuff dialed in between they head out west, because then when they head out west in the middle of November 18th, it's a big road trip versus some really good teams. They start off versus the Suns. Suns are playing really well this year. They head to the Clippers. The Lakers are going to be a tough team. Then it's a little bit easier. They head back east. It's not a huge West Coast road trip. I lied. It's only a 3-game West Coast road trip, but that road trip's going to be important because, by that's going to kind of help set the tone towards the end of the month leading into December. So they got to figure it out. And I think they will. I really do. So Luke, anything else on your mind before we wrap this up? We've been talking for about 37 minutes. It's kind of this is a hard conversation to have because there's not a lot of positives we're taking out other than Tristan da Silva looks pretty good, right? Other than that, like everything else is like kind of not super amazing. Anything else on your mind before we wrap up this show?
Well, that's just the thing. I feel like there's always a silver lining in everything if you choose to look for it. And over the past several days since Halloween, I have been forcing myself to find those positives, and there have been, and there have been some that Mosley's been echoing. We touched upon it earlier, but the fact that this is happening now is a positive, and not near the end of the season
It's fair.
when you don't have time to adjust. The fact that Paolo's injury, like you said, is an oblique injury and not something we're seeing in Wendell right now, where this is reoccurring, or at least we hope it's not reoccurring. That is a huge positive, and the fact that the Magic have a ton of depth and the ability to like have experiments to a point where it's early in the season. What better time to have experiments than when you're on the road against really good teams and you just lost your best player? Those games are games that, let's face it, most of us didn't think that we were going to win anyway. At least they were going to be close before Paolo's injury. And what better way to just say, hey, let's take this moment of time to see what works, see what doesn't work. And again, I'm not saying that that's what they're doing. That's their full intention. I'm sure they want to win those games too.
Sure,
but
yeah.
The fact that they're dedicating their time to at least picking up the pieces, putting them together, and seeing what works, and it works. And again, this was never meant to be a championship year. This is not Boston losing Jason Tatum. This is not Oklahoma City losing Shea. This is a season which, again, you have some expectations, but ultimately it's just see what works. That's been the whole point of the season. See what works. And now you get that beautiful opportunity to see, it's beautifully tragic opportunity, I should say, to see what works when you have life without Paolo. So yeah, these 3 games have been less than stellar, but in a way, the fact that they lost this game by 20 and not by 40, I think is something that is positive, considering that the Magic haven't spent regular season playing time preparing for, because that's what Paolo's role was. And we talked about it earlier, but earlier today, as he was trying to keep Wendell Carter's spirits up, Jamahl Mosley was telling reporters, and also was telling him a little bit from how I interpreted the pregame presser, that his injury is a blessing in disguise because it didn't happen later in the season, because it's happening at a moment where we can afford to have these experiences, where it's not games that we should win or we need to win. It's early in the season against really good teams. You want to prove yourself for sure, but you also need to prove to yourself that you can beat these teams. And when you can do that, then that's when you can go on and say, we can beat Cleveland, we can beat Oklahoma City, we can beat Boston, we can beat any of these teams that stand in our way. Let us figure our stuff out first. And that's a positive that I think Jamahl Mosley has really wanted to emphasize. And I think that I want to emphasize too, because I agree. Like, the situation sucks. It's a terrible situation. You never want to see your best player go out with an injury like that. That'll force them into extended time. But as long as things are on schedule, I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, they're getting a lot of data right now from like a lot of the younger players too, which is great. You know, like Jed Howard, like we said, he's going to get a lot of good, meaningful playing time to figure out his game. Tristan da Silva is getting a lot of good playing time to figure out his game and how they fit into this Magic roster. Obviously, Anthony Black was already in a bigger role coming into this season, and he's going to play an even bigger role, or not is going to. He's currently playing a bigger role than even what was initially planned. So they're learning a lot about this team, which, yeah, it's good to figure it out now than the last 20 games of the season. But, you know, in a team that is trying to make the playoffs, like every win counts right now, right? And we, you know, at the end in May, when they've played 82 games, the losses are the number, no matter if they lost them at the end of the season or the beginning of the season. So they're going to be competitive. They're going to try and get some wins out. It's not just going to be an experiment, but they got to experiment a little bit to see what's going to work. So, Luke, let's go ahead and wrap this up. This was a good conversation, a nice venting conversation I think we both needed.
Oh, we needed it.
It's hard for us to see this team right now playing the way they are. It's just like, it's not fun basketball. So we'll figure it out. The team will figure it out. We won't figure anything out. We're just going to keep telling you how it is and what we're seeing.
We'll figure
but
out
the
our
team will
feelings.
figure it out. We'll try and spin it in a good and a bad way. And today was a little bit more of a kind of a bad way with some good to it, but we'll figure it out. Luke, tell the people where they can find you, what you got going on.
You can find me over at Twitter, X, the Bird app, whatever it's called now, at Scotchie34. You're going to find a lot of really good stories that I usually talk to from players. You're going to find clips that Magic PR has posted that I've summarized and condensed down the important parts to. And then sometimes you'll find me saying things that are sometimes funny. You can also find me at www.orlandomagichq.com, where you can find all of us. And we have amazing, amazing content. I myself have a number of articles and where I've spoken about the journeys of Goga, of Mo Wagner, and even of MCW. I've talked about those journeys with them, and if you haven't, and if you haven't read those yet, do it. At least those I can guarantee will soothe your soul when the way the Magic are playing offense right now is not.
Yeah, pay attention to Luke. He's got some really cool stuff coming up too. He is the writer that does our exclusive content. Like he's the one where you'll see multiple player interviews come out throughout this season. I know we got some big stuff in the works now, so keep your eyes and ears peeled for those. Luke, thanks for coming on the show. Listeners, thanks for tuning in. It's been another episode of The Close Up, part of the Orlando Magic HQ Network. We'll see you next time. Peace.